Hey guys, and welcome to this week's episode of D3 Live. So today we're going to be talking about the PlayStation phone. Now if you've read any of the tech blogs or news or anything like that, you'll know that a lot has been said recently about the new upcoming PlayStation phone. Now of course it was leaked a little while back, however recently we've actually had some video of it, some actual hands-on of it, and it does look pretty good. However, there are a few things that I think I'd like to talk about that I think that could be pretty interesting to you guys, because a lot of people are thinking it's going to be a PlayStation phone when I think that's stretching it just a little bit, but we'll get into that in just a second. So to go over it, of course, Sony Ericsson, the mobile division of Sony, who makes cell phones and smartphones and all that kind of stuff, will be making this PlayStation phone. Now they generally aren't, well, they make pretty decent phones. A lot of the times the phones aren't, the best. A lot of times they're a little outdated, especially with, the firmware updates. Like, for example, some of them are just now getting the old 2.1 version of Android. So it kind of tells you that they're a little bit behind the curve, but that's not really to say anything about this upcoming phone. So the code name is the Sony Ericsson Z1, also known, PlayStation phone. But some of the really interesting things about it is that it seems like a normal Android phone on the surface. You have a nice screen, about 4 inches or so. Looks, it's pretty nice. However, it does have slide-out, not keyboard rather, but actual buttons. So it's somewhat similar to an overlarge PSPgo. Now, really the cool thing about this that I like is that it's actually going to have all the physical buttons that you would need. Now, anyone who's ever played a game on an iPhone or an Android phone or even a Windows phone can attest to the fact that touchscreen controls, well, for some games such as, Angry Birds and stuff like that, it works fine. However, a lot of more in-depth games such as first-person shooters, anything that you would need to touch the screen and use maybe like analog sticks, it's just not fun. It's just not any good at all. So that fact that they're actually going to add physical buttons, shoulder buttons, a D-pad, all the kind of good stuff that you would expect, although maybe not analog sticks, but we'll get into that in a minute, is going to be a huge help. I think it would be so much nicer, because that's one of the major things, in my opinion, that's really helping, why people are still buying PSPs and DSs, buying standalone game consoles, is just because they actually have physical buttons and they actually have games that are, while they're obviously going to be more expensive, if you buy a Madden or something for the PSP, it's going to be more expensive than Madden for the iPhone. However, you're generally going to get a better quality experience with physical buttons, better controls, and sometimes better gameplay. That's not always the case. However, that is a major part of it. So I think that Sony Ericsson has a really great opportunity with this phone. I think with the physical controls and with a standalone marketplace. So a lot of people have said that, that there's going to be maybe like a PlayStation Network sort of interface. Maybe it might be an add-on to the standard Android market. Now, personally, I don't know how they're going to do it, but it doesn't matter so much as long as it's actually being done. So obviously they're going to have a lot of games specifically for these PlayStation phone. I would expect a lot of the ports from other consoles such as perhaps the DS and the PSP, but more than likely mostly from Android and especially from the iPhone. Now this also should run, because it's obviously got a touchscreen, should have an accelerometer, all the things you expect, it should run standard Android games as well. However, the really meat and potatoes of this is going to be the specific PlayStation games that are made for it. So because developers can actually go ahead and make their games for the physical controls and know that they're going to run very nicely on this single piece of hardware, not 50 different Android phones that are developing for one piece of hardware, then the game should be a lot higher quality. Perhaps a bit more expensive. However, I do think it will be worth it. But in addition to that, they also hopefully will also have PlayStation 1 games. Now this is not confirmed, this is just what a lot of people are speculating about. However, it would definitely make sense in my opinion if they went ahead and ported over some PlayStation 1 games. Now they obviously can already do this on the PlayStation 3. However, I think it would be great to go ahead and be able to play, Gran Turismo and, all the great PlayStation 1 games on your phone with actual real controls. So that's one really cool thing, I think. Between the standard Android games that you'll be able to play, hopefully PlayStation 1, perhaps PSP, although I don't 100% know if they're actually going to go ahead and allow you to download some PSP games. Even if they do, I think they learned their lesson from the PSPgo as far as making you charge full price for a download game that takes forever. There's a lot of problems with the PSPgo. I'm not 100% sure that you'll actually be able to play PSP games on it. However, I do think that you will be able to play some decent games, and of course all the standard Android ones as well. Now that's of course not even to mention the major part of it, which is it is going to be a phone. So everything, if you've ever had an Android phone, everything you do with that, you're still going to be able to do: make phone calls, browse the web, check your email, play apps that are other than games. So it really should be a fantastic overall device. Now, one of my major problems with it is going to be the price, and of course the availability, but mostly the price. Now, some people have been kind of speculating that it might be a little bit more expensive. Especially if they put PlayStation branding on it, so instead of just calling it, the Sony Ericsson Z1, if they actually call it the Sony PlayStation phone, or they put the PlayStation branding on there, then I would expect that they would raise the price, because obviously, you look at it and go, well, why would I buy this phone? I can buy a PlayStation phone and get games and all that kind of stuff. So they really need to be careful, in my opinion, of not overpricing the phone. If they put it way above what you might find another Android or an iPhone for, I think they could run into some trouble. However, as long as they pay attention, they're not going to go crazy. They keep it at a reasonable price, and they do release it on a fair few carriers. If it's only on one carrier, whatever, that also could hurt. But as long as they do it right and keep a decent price and keep it on a fair few carriers, I think it could do very well. Okay, so for the second segment of D3 Live, I will be taking live questions from everyone. So of course, as always with every episode of D3 Live, it's all filmed in front of Blog TV, and we have a lot of people in here today, so I'm going to just answer some questions. Do I think the CPU will be higher than 1 gigahertz? That's a good question. I've heard some conflicting reports. Some people say that it's just going to be a standard Snapdragon processor, which is what you would find in several other phones, such as the HTC Evo. However, some other people have suggested that there might be a more powerful processor that will be able to crunch faster and better looking games. Personally, I don't know. I'm kind of in the middle. I wouldn't be surprised if it goes either way. I definitely could see them, cheaping out a little bit, and because the Snapdragon processor is still pretty good. It is a 1 gigahertz processor, really quite fast. However, I wouldn't be surprised if they decide to spend a little bit more money and get something that's actually capable of even better graphics. Do I think the PSP2 will have Android? That is such a great question. I really have been back and forth about this for a while, ever since we've started hearing about it, and especially with the PlayStation phone. I think it would definitely make sense. While the PSP, the standard interface and the operating system on the original PSP, there's nothing wrong with that. I definitely do like the look of it and everything. However, if they were able to just make that like a skin on top of Android, I think that would be the best of both worlds. I think to be actually able on your PSP to go ahead and download apps, all that kind of stuff would be fantastic. Whether they're going to do that, or maybe they might just do something different and just add app support to the standard operating system, I don't know. But if it does run Android, I would be very, very happy. How much will the PlayStation phone be, and when will it come out? As far as the price, I talked about this a little bit earlier. I don't know. Hopefully about what you would buy a standard smartphone. So in the U.S., on contract, most of them are about $200. However, it might go a little over. So it's kind of hard to say, but I wouldn't expect it to be, outrageously expensive or anything like that. As far as when it's coming out, a lot of people have been pointing towards February of next year. Seems to make sense because we've been seeing it a lot lately. All kinds of leaks and screenshots. So it definitely does make sense that an announcement and a release date would be fairly soon. Do they think they'll make 2 different versions, one for the U.S. and one of the rest of the world? Possibly. Generally, I would think not. Obviously, every country has a slightly tweaked model, with the different language, with small little differences and everything. But overall, I wouldn't be surprised if they just go ahead and just put out one standard one. Now, they might make one for GSM networks and one for CDMA. I don't know about that. But on the most part, I would think it would be mostly the same no matter where you are. PlayStation phone or iPhone 4? That's a tough question. However, by the time the PlayStation phone comes out, I think it will be more of PlayStation phone versus iPhone 5. However, while they're both smartphones and while they both will be, competing, I think that they have slightly different focuses. I think the iPhone 4 is a great general phone. I think it's one of the best available right now, and it does great for a lot of people. And while obviously there are a lot of great games in the App Store, I think the PlayStation phone will absolutely really capitalize on the gaming aspect. You're not going to buy the PlayStation phone because it runs Android. You're not going to buy it because it looks nice. You're going to buy it to play games. And so if you're going to be that person who really wants to play games, the PlayStation phone is absolutely the way you're going to want to go. If games are that important to you, I really don't see any reason why you would want to buy that. Will the phone be locked to a single carrier? I hope not. It's absolutely possible. We see it all the time. iPhone 4 actually is a great example. All the iPhones have been locked to AT&T in the United States. However, I hope that AT&T, well, rather than AT&T, but Sony Ericsson will go ahead and get it for at least a couple of carriers. Maybe not every carrier everywhere. That would be a little bit difficult to pull off. But I would hope that they would at least get more than one carrier. And of course, I would really hope that they actually allow you to go ahead and buy an unlocked version, which would be more expensive. But especially if it was just a standard GSM or a standard CDMA, if you could go ahead and just buy it unlocked, that would be great as well. Will I buy the PS phone? Possibly. I'm a little bit on the fence. I'm really going to wait and see exactly what all it's about. If a lot of what we've been hearing is true, I think I probably will. If it actually has PlayStation 1 games, the controls work, all the kind of stuff that, I expect, I probably will get it. However, there are a few questions that I'm still waiting for, so it's kind of a little bit too early to say, yeah, I'm going to go spend all kinds of money on this. Are the videos of it legit? Yeah, I do think so. We've seen pictures of it before. We've seen leaks, people have talked about it, and now, of course, if you've seen any about it on the internet, you've seen that there are several videos of it available. Yeah, I do believe that's legit. It looks exactly what we've seen before. Everything matches up, and it's pretty good looking in its own right. So yeah, I definitely would believe that it is going to be legit. How much would games cost? That is a huge factor into it. Now, of course, they are going to be downloadable games. It doesn't appear to have any sort of slot for a UMD or anything like that, perhaps a memory card, but you will be downloadable games. And I really think after PlayStation, they announced the PSPgo, and it hasn't done that well because people like to actually have physical discs. I think that Sony's really learned that they can't price the games too high. It's one thing to go ahead and go download Angry Birds for $1, or spend a little bit of money to go ahead and get a game. However, for full feature titles, when they try to charge the same price as you would expect on anything else, I just don't think that would fly. I think that they've got to keep the prices low, competitive with what you would find in the App Store or the Android market. I think that's going to be the real key to success. Probably $10 would be the cap on most games. I think that would be the standard thing, as that's not too expensive. It's not going to be totally break the bank, but it's also not going to be charging you full price for a game that you may or might not want. Will games be downloadable? Yeah, like I just said, I absolutely would expect that they would be downloadable. I wouldn't be surprised if it does have a micro SD card slot for expansion. However, I would definitely expect that you just download it the same way you would through the App Store or through the Android market. Okay, so that's it for this week's episode of D3 Live. So if you enjoyed, feel free to subscribe. I do these every week, Saturday, in fact, at 3 o'clock Eastern Time. You can go ahead and check out the video live. I post the link so you can go ahead and watch it live, chat, hang out. We always play games. Or, in fact, you can go ahead and wait for it and watch it later on YouTube.